Okay, hey everybody. This is Nerd Variety, and I'm Hunter as always, and over here is Josh. Yeah. So today's topic: franchise reboots. The good, the bad, what will be, what should be.
And
Just
never been ever.
well, that's a lot to cover, so no. Um, okay, so let's start with just one point that I want to make because I was talking about with this with a coworker earlier today. Um, so reboot versus remake, there is definitely a difference, right? Wouldn't you say?
Mm, I'm thinking a reboot is. I'm
Well,
sure we can
so
look up an actual definition of it, but
well,
I think of a remake as in like they're remaking a movie series with different actors and stuff. Reboots more of like the story itself has been changed, or they switch a lot, they switch characters around, and everything's kind of thrown off. Um, the plot's thrown off. Remakes more of the same plot. Reboots more a lot more. There's a lot of differences. A lot more differences.
yeah, and that's what I was gonna say. So
Mm.
like a reboot is more of a reimagining, whereas a remake is just kind of updating something
Yeah,
and
a
kind of
modern retelling.
yeah,
Yeah.
which is pretty different. So uh, there are a few things that we know just right off the bat. A few things we know that will uh, be rebooted somewhat soon. We don't know exactly when, as far as I'm aware, but obviously we have X-Men coming to the MCU as well as the Fantastic Four, and just starting there, yeah, X-Force, or was that
Wakanda
Wakanda
Forever
Forever? Okay.
or Wonder Woman.
Wonder, uh, any number of things that
Too
has
many
been
of them.
rebooted many times. Um, no,
Yeah.
so well, while just talking about X-Men. First of all,
Yeah.
we kind of have seen what I will call a soft reboot of the X-Men franchise in film as
Mhm.
well already.
Yeah.
So,
Uh, can we introduce the term requel?
no. Uh, so really,
Or a preboot?
I mean, I guess you can, but the main thing with that, however, is my main issue with that is that if you're trying to call it, I guess it is more of a requel instead of a prequel, because even with First Class, they went back
Yeah.
and obviously they recast with like James McAvoy, but
Mhm.
of course he's still not like it's not believable that what was the one set in the 90s? Was Dark Phoenix in the 90s?
Dark Phoenix was set in the 90s. Yeah.
Yeah.
Each
And I
one
think I think the one before that was as well, but I don't remember.
uh
Apocalypse.
80s. They went 10 years for each one. 60s
80s.
for
Okay.
First Class, 70s for Days of Future Past, 80s for Apocalypse, and 90s for Dark Phoenix.
Yeah, so like saying that that's supposed to be, and again I call it a soft reboot as opposed to like just a hard reboot, because obviously as you saw in Days of Future Past, they tried to connect it, well they did connect it to the modern group of people. So we saw like Patrick Stewart being the older Xavier, and James McAvoy being the younger one,
And
which
they
especially once we get to Dark Phoenix, that's kind of like, yeah, I don't remember exactly what year, but say they even started in 90, like 1990. Like the first X-Men movie with Patrick Stewart is supposed to take place in like 99 or maybe 2000 or something.
movie
And
came out. The first movie came out in I want to say 2000.
yeah, so let's be generous and say 10 years. We're supposed to like they're supposed to try to pass that James McAvoy ends up looking like Patrick Stewart in 10 years time.
I
Like
mean, that's some crazy genetics, dude.
it is. Like
I
I feel
guess,
really sorry for him.
like,
But
well, on the one hand, I mean, you are, you've gotten really, you've aged kind of well, but then something kind of happened to where you
right.
don't,
Like you're
you don't.
not recognizable at all.
I know, right? Right.
And you can say the same about Michael Fassbender to Ian McKellen. Like
Yeah.
not believable. And so
I think Fassbender and Ian McGregor is a little
Ian
more.
McGregor,
No,
yeah,
not sorry.
Ian McKellen.
Ian McLean is a little more believable than they look a little similar. I think if you aged them a little
Not
bit.
McLean, McKellen.
Yeah, McKellen, my bad. But
I
I mean,
mean, still though, 10 years time, like
yeah.
that's a bit much. So
But now the movies are an alternate timeline from the first one. So
yeah.
uh,
And if you even want to put in the technically it doesn't exist,
yeah,
thanks to Deadpool. But if you want to include X-Men Origins Wolverine, that was like in the 70s, I think, maybe, or
that
even
was supposed to
60s.
take place in the late 70s, 80s because it had the Vietnam War,
Yeah.
and then it had where they got then it had the Vietnam War, and then it switched into the 80s until I think there was a 3 Mile Island incident, which took place in the 80s. So they try to make it historical as best they can, but
Yeah.
there's still a lot of,
And
thankfully they retconned that movie, and I think there's another one, and Last, and of course Last, they retconned Last Stand, retconned the ones that didn't help their franchise out there very much.
yeah, well, also, showing that, let's say that X-Men Origins Wolverine was supposed to also take place in that universe. We do see Patrick Stewart as Professor Xavier walking in that time, which also doesn't add up with the whole time they had, the frame of First Class, him getting paralyzed in the 60s, and he's clearly not paralyzed at the end of that movie. So it's a whole weird thing. That movie really messed with the timeline and everything. And again, like I enjoyed the soft reboot to X-Men, the whatever First Class franchise or series, whatever you want to call it. But they like I do think it's good that they're getting a hard reboot being added to the MCU overall, and I'm really personally curious more than excited or anything. I'm really
Yeah,
curious just to see what they're gonna do and how they're gonna do that.
right. Because as much as I I liked a lot. There's a lot to like about the old X-Men franchise, like the first series and the second and the prequel series. And there's a lot to dislike, and they had a lot of problems with continuity. I think with this one, it'll really force them to kind of get a better continuity with them being in the MCU.
Yeah,
But the faces of the actors and actresses are going to be burned in my brain. I can't. It's hard to imagine new people playing them
yeah,
because they have to, because they're going to be rebooting them. They have to recast them.
yeah.
Uh,
And it's especially hard, I think, for everybody. It's going to be the most difficult to try to imagine anybody but Hugh Jackman as
Jack
Wolverine.
Human, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's
It still works. It still works.
yeah, sure.
Yeah,
But it's going to be tough, and that's
yeah,
definitely going to be a big controversial decision. But
yeah.
it wouldn't be the first time there's been a
Right.
big cast change like
Same.
that in
Yeah. Same thing with,
any major franchise.
yeah, Fantastic. Well, looking at other ones, Fantastic Four is going to get that same treatment, but while they've never had very successful or very critically well received series yet. So I think
Yeah,
with them in the MCU, they'll have a better. They can pick a much better cast. They can get a better story for them and really tell their story in a good way for everybody. Everybody like, oh my god, I see why this series was so popular, and it works so well with in the MCU now. And
yeah.
And now, like we saw with Spider-Man, and how he's been uh, he's in that weird line of reboot remade
Yeah,
reboot.
and again, that was another one I wanted to bring up
Yeah.
because supposedly this, and he's kind of in that limbo state right now. Uh,
Yeah.
like we really don't know. Like Sony has said I think they said recently, the last thing they said is they've officially closed the book on dealing with Disney. Um,
I'm holding out hope. I think they still want that Disney, boost, and
yeah,
they're willing to fork over a little more money. And there's a lot of course, public support, for that. But
yeah.
Disney needs to be cool and not try to take, not be greedy for
Yeah.
all the Spider money.
I mean, I understand both sides of it. It's a whole thing. Like, I do think a good reason for the success of the more recent Spider-Man movies and everything is largely because of Marvel
Yeah,
and his use in the MCU as well. So, I mean, I think personally, I don't know. I lean towards them that the idea that they should be getting more from that, but still, in the same token, it's not like Marvel really needs that money. I
no,
mean, Disney.
Disney Marvel doesn't need Marvel Studios doesn't need 50%.
Yeah, like again, I
They
see
can
it. I can see it
between that
in
5 and 20%. They get survive between that 5 and 20% and 30% that that I would be like, if I was if I was an advisor for Sony, I would be like, you don't have to give them more than 30%. Don't
yeah,
they're fine.
and
They're fine.
again, like I I do see I see both sides. Like Sony, they've been doing well, but they have done very unwell with
Mhm.
Spider-Man in the past on their own. And
They've taken it into different and wrong directions
yeah,
while
and
trying to
we really
keep telling telling um, the Raimi and then the Raimi and the web series. Those are I guess good examples of remakes where they just say, okay, it's Peter Parker and he loses his uncle and he great power comes with responsibility and fights the the advisor that's close to him that he ends up killing him by accident, or he destroys he ruins our friendship or relationship or something like that.
yeah, well, it's just and I would say, the Amazing Spider-Man was definitely I think without a doubt that was definitely a reboot of the Sam Raimi
Hmm.
stuff, but
But that kind of
again,
also goes back to comics where it's a kind of a different. Isn't that a different Spider-Man, or is it more of? No, it's not. Sorry, you're right. You're right. It's more. That's definitely a remake.
it's not a remake, it's a reboot. That was a reboot.
That was a reboot, but it's yeah.
Again, we talked about this at the
I
beginning.
guess
A
I guess that's
remake would mean that it would be like the same storyline and everything. This was
right.
definitely a reboot.
Yeah, it's just I'm thinking about it because it has some basis in the comics to where they went back. They tried to
That
go back and keep him in high school for a little bit longer.
that's not the important part though about the distinction between a remake and a reboot. The important part is that they changed a lot of the rules of the world and everything and how characters played out and all that. Nothing was kept over from the Sam Raimi trilogy
Right,
when
right.
they did
Yeah,
the Amazing Spider-Man. So that
yeah,
is why I think it was really a reboot, not a remake.
yeah.
Again, like they
It's a
had the whole animal thing going
yeah,
on with like the lizard, and I think they were gonna bring in the Scorpion. I don't remember exactly.
yeah. They were planning a Sinister
Yeah,
Six thing, going
yeah.
trying to pull a MCU.
Which I think that is what they're. I don't remember if this was confirmed, but that definitely looks like what they're going for with Sony, and
Mm,
because they had they still have the rights, and as we have seen in the past couple of years or so, they have definitely been expanding that Spider-Man universe of
yeah,
films, like with Venom and Into the Spider-Verse. And I think, again, I don't remember if they've confirmed it, if they've just straight up said it, but
mm,
I'm pretty sure they are building towards a Sinister Six film.
yeah. There's been talks of them playing a Morbius vampire movie. There's they were talking about a couple of there's this duo. I want to say I think it's like Silver Sable or something like that, and
Yeah, I did hear something
I'm not
about Silver
exactly
Sable.
yeah, I'm not exactly sure, but they definitely want to I guess make a little verse of their own, but you know how it's just going to be a lot to work around. But I get confused. I was confusing the remake thing because that has ties in the comics. I think a good example of a remake. Think of Magnificent Seven. It's in the Western.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So that one. That's,
remake of Seven Samurai.
yeah, yeah. Because you have the original movie, and then you went, and then they and like so many years after they make another one with new cast with new cast and stuff, but they tell the exact same story.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a remake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so this is, oh, and also just on the Spider-Man thing with Sinister Six, just to finish that thought while I'm on it. They obviously are setting up the Sinister Six as we have seen the Vulture, who is still around clearly. I can't remember if we saw a sign of Rhino, but we also saw that Scorpion is in there at the end credit scene of Homecoming.
Yeah.
And then, well, obviously, I mean, really, who knows what's going on with Mysterio? Like, his tech is still there.
Yeah.
And they could be doing some weird stuff. I don't know, but yeah. Anyways, so moving on, just because this is a big topic. There's a lot to discuss. What about video games? Do you think there are any good video games that have done successful reboots? Do you think there are some that have been laughable, just particularly?
Oh yeah, there have been some laughable ones.
Particularly bad ones, or and what do you think? What franchise would you say needs a reboot? So let's start. What are just a few examples of games that have done reboots?
Okay, Tomb Raider did a reboot, and they did an amazing job. I guess bringing her into the I think the first game came out and the first new one came out in 2010 or 2011.
Yeah, something like that. I was thinking it was 2012 actually.
Yeah, because I remember.
Actually, it was 2012 because, or even 2013, because I very specifically remember 2011. The lineup for 2011 to me was very memorable, and I remember Tomb Raider did not come out then because 2011 was like Skyrim, and I remember Dragon Age 2, and that was a lot of big games. But Tomb Raider, that's definitely one of the first ones that I think of, and I think they've been pretty good with keeping up the quality. I played a bit of the most recent one that came out last year. I actually streamed some of it, but I never got around to finishing it, and I never finished it on my own, so I can't really speak on that one.
Yeah,
I feel like from what I heard, it got kind of repetitive, but
yeah, I mean,
I don't know.
It's her doing her thing, and it probably borrows a lot from what is that other series I can't think of? Uncharted. It borrows a lot from Uncharted, but it's good. They're retelling it in a more, I guess, down to earth character and making her a little more realistic, and I guess making it kind of, I guess, putting more, into it instead of the, I guess it was. I felt maybe the old games were a little simple. They seemed a little simple to me, but I do remember the Lara Croft series from like the '90s and the 2010 and the 2000s being its thing, and then now we have the new one. So it's a little more realistic, a little more gritty, and a lot more higher stakes. Seeing her like get into an accident or having to do a lot more parkour was like, oh wow, this is not the same Lara Croft.
Definitely upgraded technology really helps as well, and also that's I think the reason for a lot of very successful reboots. Another one that comes to my mind just as you were talking about that, I don't know why, but well, two actually that are very similar. One being Doom, which did very well. Hannah would love to talk about this, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But also, uh, kind of in that same vein, Wolfenstein. Wolfenstein
Yeah.
did that a few years ago, and
Mhm.
it's, they're continuing, and it's great quality.
Yeah.
And those are classic shooters now that were very retro. They're very retro if you look back at them. Very first person, very pixelated, kind of simple. Again,
Yeah.
looking back at it, looks
Yeah.
simple. But now just taking that and turning it into a whole new thing, big, shiny, but still very just good gameplay, very solid and
Yeah.
modernized.
Yeah. Keep the core concepts, but I guess make it into make a world, make a more visually appeasing world if you can. It's just you have the technology to do that without sacrificing too much of the story, sacrificing what made the game great
Yeah.
originally. Mm-hmm.
My point one thing that I think is really important for any reboot, whether it's a video game, movie, show, whatever. A good thing for a reboot is not to take too much time with it. And if you are
Yeah.
taking too much time, you need to still try to be as modern as possible because
Yeah.
time moves on. Obviously, you're
Yes.
gonna things are gonna get outdated before they even release if you don't
Yeah.
update it.
Some jokes or gimmicks get really old, and
Yeah,
you need to rethink your humor a little bit,
yeah,
or rethink a good way of how this character works in a game, or how this game plays, because yeah, you're gonna have some people that are nostalgic, but they only last so much.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, one thing that I did want to touch on too for a minute is something that actually came up on a Reddit that I looked at a few weeks ago now. Um, it was kind of an old post by the time I saw it too,
Mm-hmm.
but it was like an affiliate group from Ubisoft, I think,
Mm-hmm.
asking kind of I they it, what from what they were saying, uh, it sounded like they're not actually planning on moving forward with anything specifically, but just kind of gauging people's reactions and input. Um, they're talking about a possible Assassin's Creed reboot and how people would feel about that. And
Hmm.
I thought of it, yeah, kind of that was sort of my reaction when I first heard of it. I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I don't know, like it seems like such an iconic thing now.
Yeah.
It may not be to a huge group, but to a huge audience, but it's pretty standard. And it's, I was trying to decide also if it's been long enough for it to even warrant a reboot.
Yeah. I mean, it
And
seems like it's equivalent to I guess, what's a it's going back to the X-Men series. I mean, they seem like they're trying to fill in the gaps, all the like big historical parts in history that they could, turn into a story,
yeah,
and kind of look back. Hey, you guys remember the let's see, the Spanish Inquisition? Yeah, this is what happened. This is what really happened. Hey, you guys remember ancient Egypt? This is what really happened. Hey, you guys remember the American Revolution? Hey, this is what really happened.
yeah.
And
And I mean, that
you have
is
so much history to fill in. You just I
that
don't. I
is
think,
definitely a thing that I've been thinking about as well. Like that's one of the only real problems I actually see with rebooting Assassin's Creed is that it might be tough on the writers
mm-hmm.
to keep something fresh with the story
Yeah.
in an when you're working within the boundaries of historical events and trying
Mm-hmm.
to make them more unique. Again, the main thing is it needs to be planned, and that's the thing with like any reboot. um, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and with anything, honestly, piece of entertainment, anything that you want to be consumed by other people, never make it just to make it, just because you think you're going to make money from it, because people
Mm-hmm.
pick up on that. I think
Yeah,
consumers in
yeah,
general, especially like gamers, are a lot smarter and able to we pick up a lot more on the fact that people are doing something just because they think they can make money off of it. And we're like, no, it needs to be good quality.
good. It needs to be good, and you need guys need to
Yeah.
take your time with it, so it can last for another for 5, 6, 7 years,
Yeah.
and make you guys give you guys a profit and the and the acclimate and the credit that you guys want.
Yeah. And you brought up Call of
Um,
Duty. Oh, I'm sorry. Were you
huh?
speaking? You're kind of frozen. I couldn't hear if you were speaking.
Oh, pause recording.
No, no, I got it. I got it.
Okay,
Cool. So, sorry, you mentioned Call of Duty for a second. Um, I think
I did.
actually that's another one that I was thinking seems kind of unnecessary because I'm pretty sure they're rebooting that. I think specifically they're rebooting Modern Warfare.
Because they did go back to World War II and make a that brand new. I'm pretty sure it's brand new with different characters and story. I don't know. They're not probably not referencing the old games. I'm not sure if the old games really even had much of a story, but yeah,
Well,
yeah.
again,
I think they wanted to go back.
no, but I mean, I'm not talking about that, but like, have you seen they're rebooting? They're literally rebooting Modern Warfare, like that one specifically. So, and I don't understand why. All their games are pretty much the same, in my opinion. Like I will grant they have made improvements over the years, from game to game. I'm not a huge Call of Duty person. I played some of them.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah,
but they're I especially like Modern Warfare. I don't see the point in rebooting it other than just to try to make money.
yeah, yeah. Give consumers a yearly game to buy for the holidays, and don't. But I guess it's not so really, and that it's not really so much for a store to tell a story. It's to make something relevant every year that can make some money.
And again, that's the biggest reason why I don't understand rebooting Modern Warfare because, as you said, their purpose does not seem to be about the story. Like maybe a little bit, maybe to some people, and they're trying to, you know, get as large of a fan base as they can, so the people that enjoy the story. But again, like I feel like that's not the largest part of the people that play Call of Duty. And the ones that are getting it every year, I don't think they're getting it because of the story. They're which
Yeah,
again, to belabor a point, um, doing Modern Warfare again as a reboot seems totally unnecessary. Just call it something else, make it different. I don't care. Put it in the same time. Just do it in a different location, different characters, different
yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
Don't call it a reboot. And again, my assumption is that they will try to make it like a reboot and maybe include the same characters, but give them like different attributes and stuff, which again,
hmm
I don't understand the point.
yeah.
Sorry, just a little rant.
A little, little rants.
Just a little.
Little rants are good. You need to get it out of your system.
Yeah,
Tell us how you really feel.
I did.
Uh, yeah. What do you think about the Transformers series? They're rebooting. They've gone through a lot of
I was wondering
TV,
about that.
TV reboots, remakes, and yeah, I would say remakes. Um, and now this movie series is getting a reboot,
Is
starting
it?
with Bumblebee. Yeah, Bumblebee is supposed to be the start of a new timeline or a new series because
Because
they
I
went
was
back.
I was talking about that with one of my coworker again today, and he
Mhm.
he mentioned that was like still part of the same timeline, universe, and everything. I don't know. I haven't been keeping up with the Transformers stuff in a long time, The last one I really watched and cared about was probably Transformers 2. I watched like the third one, but I really didn't care about it. I was just kind of, it was on Netflix or something, I think, and I just kind of watched it just because.
Yeah, I watched two. I watched 1, 2, and 3. They were part of the trilogy, and they kind of ended. That Sam, Shia LaBeouf's character Sam, his story with the Transformers, and then they decided to keep it going, and they didn't really change. They kept it was still kind of the same movie, but somehow worse, or
Yeah.
not as engaging.
God, those movies just got worse and worse.
Yeah. But maybe they can do some more grounded story work, storylines with the quote unquote new movies that they're going to do, the new series they're going to start if they decide to continue. What about Terminator?
Terminator, well, they're not rebooting that really, right? Like this is still a continuation. This, although
they're not looking. Yeah,
Dark Fate is more, as far from what I heard actually, is that it's like it's supposed to be, I think, a direct sequel to Terminator 2,
right?
Instead of like Genesis, which I haven't seen Genesis. I think that's the only one I haven't seen yet, but I don't remember for sure.
Yeah, Genesis was okay.
I know
Genesis was okay, but it's still they still were doing a little too much, I think. And I think now that James Cameron has the reins of the Terminator movies again, he's going to try to. I think they were trying to make a series where they could end it. I think now James Cameron's going to try to do that, where he can make a movie, see where it goes, and then try to end the series.
Yeah, makes sense. But yeah, because that's one that you can also kind of tell that they keep doing it just to keep making them, just for the sake of making them, because it's like, oh yeah, we have this storyline that probably should have ended a while ago, but we keep finding ways to keep it going.
It's fine. Just put a little duct tape and super glue this here, and just paint over that little scratch there.
And definitely speaking of that, making them just to make them without wrapping anything up, my mind also immediately goes to Underworld, the Underworld series, which was also the same kind of line of thought that I had with the Resident Evil movies, except they actually did wrap those up.
Yeah. I remember I guess paying attention to them, not having a lot of time to actually watch all of them, but like the one, like the first three, I knew I watched, and then after that I was like, are they ever gonna end these movies, or
no,
what's going on here? But then
no.
While I was in college, they finally said, okay, this is the last one.
yeah, and that was, I think, around the time they did. Maybe not. Maybe it was a few years later, but they did. I believe it's still the most recent Underworld movie. I can't even remember what it's called, but I went and saw that with Phil actually, and it was good. But again, those are movies that, like, they're fun. I'll watch them. I enjoy them. They're not going to end, though. I don't think. I don't feel like they are. Yeah. Which ones? I mean, I'm kind of fine with that, honestly. Like, they're fun movies. They don't.
Which ones?
The Underworld movies.
Oh, yeah. Are they making another one?
Probably. The last one definitely ended on a cliffhanger. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Again, like, it was good, and it's one of those things for like 2 hours after they spend like 2 hours making like a little bit of progress in the overall story. And it's like, okay, so that was just another like step up a huge staircase.
They hit a switch at what was like the top of a staircase, and there's still more stairs.
Yeah. So the new Suicide Squad movie.
The Suicide Squad is what it's called.
So is this a reboot? Is it a sequel? Is it what? Because like they have they have some of the same cast, but not
Yeah,
all.
it's
And I don't think they've announced who's playing who, except the obvious. I assume Margot Robbie is
yeah.
still being played or still playing
Viola Davis is
Harley.
supposed to. I
Viola
don't think Margot
Davis,
Robbie's gonna be in this one.
she
I
is.
think Viola Davis is in this one.
I know Margot
Rick
Robbie
Flag
is.
is gonna be in it.
I know
She is.
Margot Robbie is because I looked it up just the other day to see the credits of who's in there, and I saw her name on it.
Oh. Oh, okay.
And Idris Elba
Let's
is
see.
going to
Yep.
be in there. I don't
Yeah,
know
he's
who he's
playing.
playing.
He's playing. I think he's playing. I want to say he's playing Bronze Tiger in this one.
That actually would make a lot of sense. I can see that.
Yeah, yeah. They got Rick Flag and Amanda Waller coming back for this one.
Yeah.
I didn't see anything about.
Obviously, Will Smith is not coming back, even though I think he was a great Deadshot.
Right.
And
right.
thankfully, thank God we are not seeing Jared Leto as Joker again.
Yeah, a very poorly executed Jared Leto as Joker.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you're gonna have Joker in the plot, I'll give him a good chunk, give him a good part of the movie to work in. Don't just like.
And we're seeing
you don't need.
And we're seeing Nathan Fillion. We're seeing Nathan Fillion in this. Do you know who? Do we know yet who he's playing?
No.
I'm excited. I always enjoy Nathan Fillion.
Oh yeah, Nathan Fillion can do whatever he wants. But deep down, I really would like for him to play Hal Jordan in Green Lantern movie, because he's voiced the character for a lot of DC animated films, and I could see him as like an older Hal Jordan.
You know what? Now that you mention it, I think I could see that too.
You see it?
I actually could probably see him as a few different Green Lanterns.
He could easily be either Hal Jordan or Guy Gardner, because of how smart Alki is.
Yeah, and you know what? Honestly, speaking of Idris Elba in this movie, I don't remember if this was something that came up before or if it was just in my mind, but I think he would make a good Jon Stewart.
He could. I think maybe
he's
younger
maybe
Jon
a bit
Stewart
old,
would be good.
but
yeah.
But I mean, it could work. So
I was thinking someone younger like Michael B. Jordan to play him.
Honestly, there's, again, I just wanted to kind of touch on DC because there's so much going on with that, especially for reboots, remakes, and all sorts of things. They're kind of the king of that, in my opinion.
Oh yeah.
But
they've been the movie game for the longest. I guess with looking at the '90s Batman series, and they changed actors, but they kept the story about the same. And then they actually did a actual reboot of the movies with the Nolan trilogy.
Yeah,
and they changed. That was a lot of changes. I consider that a reboot, and they rebooted again with wanting to put him in
it's definitely
a bigger DC and like a actual DC and open up to the DC universe where he's with all the other heroes.
Yeah, and again, I keep saying I just want to touch on it a little bit, but there's so much to talk about. I don't even know what their plan is moving forward, because clearly they're continuing with the parts that they like, but I guess they're not moving forward with the Justice League because Ben Affleck is not coming back as him again. So
yeah, I think I read somewhere, I'm not sure where, that he would come back for a sequel of Justice League, but he's not going to be in the individual Batman movies. But just because, and that would make sense unless they we'll have to see how the new Batman movies do, but he is the age and the version of Batman that would fit in the Justice movies if they did a sequel. Yeah. But not sure yet. I mean, we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, and again, obviously they're doing a new Batman stuff, like a prequel or something with whatever his name is.
Yeah, I think they really want to keep this.
Twilight guy.
this the DCEU timeline and try to develop it more because they didn't do a really great job with that
They didn't, but
initially.
still,
Uh, and now
oh my
and
God,
also opening the door for smaller films like Joker
yeah,
without
yeah,
him being
which also
involved.
is not being connected to the rest of the DCEU.
No,
But I really do not want to see Bruce Wayne's parents get killed again because we've seen that way too many times and it's done to death. It's dead. It's done more to death than his parents.
but that was terrible.
It was terrible. It was the execution that was
Yeah.
poorly worded. I could have worded it much better, but yeah, you get the point.
I think if anything, I think it would be cool if they don't even have to do the murder. They could have like the gun in the glass case, and
No,
and
even
like
that would be
a
too
short.
much to me. I mean, maybe not because
I
he
mean,
does do that. Like he does keep that. That is one of the things in the Batcave, I believe.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but like do it like how they have done with Tom Holland's Spider-Man. Like there's no mention of Ben, and I love that.
right,
Like they redid that whole thing, and
yeah,
there's no
yeah,
mention of that, and we don't need another Ben died thing.
yeah.
You
We don't need
know,
to see it. We do need to know. We need to know. We need to know. Like, I guess be reminded of some of the character motivations, like why he won't use a gun or why he doesn't believe in killing, his enemies. Until he starts killing them with guns. I
um,
don't know.
yeah. So again, just so much. Maybe we'll pick up maybe we'll have a week where we just talk about DC and their reboots and everything.
Yeah,
But there's a lot of stuff going on, and I'm excited. I think I also saw a thing for Birds of Prey, which is kind of a
yes.
reboot, except I believe that's going to be a movie, and it was a show in like 2000 or 2005 or something.
Yeah, it's gonna be set in the DC EU, and yeah, it's definitely a retelling. I
Yeah,
say retelling of the birds of prey, but I
yeah.
think it's gonna be good.
Yeah, I hope so. So, they have a lot of like one-offs that I think have been good. Trying to combine them has not been their strong suit so far.
Right,
And
right,
I just don't know. So
yeah.
that's a whole
So
thing. So we'll
we've established that there's a proper way to, I guess, if you're going to remake something, or well, we established what the difference between a reboot and a remake is, and there's a proper way, there's a good reason and a proper way to do you know, to decide to do a reboot and how a reboot is supposed to work.
yeah, I think once you've gotten to a point in a franchise where you kind of lost your path, nobody can really figure out what's going on.
Yeah,
I think that's a clear sign that you either need to drop it or reboot it. And in the case of something like Assassin's Creed or just DC Comics in general, in terms of the movies, I think you have good properties and good stories to tell, but it hasn't been executed right. That's when you need to stop that part, cut it, and then reboot it properly with making a
yeah,
plan, a thorough plan, and
yeah,
sticking to it. So,
yeah,
Josh, I believe you're next week. Do you have a topic yet?
yeah. I'm looking at something sciency.
Science. Oh.
Science. Ooh.
So you and Hannah have fun
Yeah,
talking about
science.
that. I do not
Yeah,
talk science a lot of times. Sometimes, but yeah.
sometimes. Yeah.
Okay. You and Hannah are the science nerds. So all right.
Brains.
So this was Nerd Variety, and at some point we will have a good, solid sign off phrase. But for now, we'll just see you guys next time. Bye.